Most people quit right before the miracle happens. The rich, they just stay one day longer, one effort deeper, one belief stronger. Success doesn't reward the talented, it rewards the persistent. Discipline. Now that's a word that doesn't sound very exciting, does it? It doesn't glitter like motivation or sparkle like inspiration. But let me tell you something. Discipline is the quiet force that builds empires while the world is asleep. It's the bridge that takes you from where you are to where you dream of being. Everyone starts with a goal. Everyone wants success, but only a few cross that bridge. And that bridge, my friend, is built with daily discipline, brick by brick, day by day. Motivation is like a spark. It lights you up, but it fades as quickly as it came. Discipline, on the other hand, is the steady fire that keeps burning, even on cold, uninspiring mornings. I remember in my early days, there were times I didn't feel like working, didn't feel like reading, didn't feel like making that extra call. But I learned quickly that feelings are poor masters. You can't build wealth or greatness by letting moods make the decisions. If you only act when you feel like it, life will always be in control of you. But once you act in spite of how you feel, that's when you begin to take control of life. Discipline means doing what is necessary, not what is convenient. It's showing up when no one's watching, keeping promises you made to yourself, long after the mood you made them in has faded. The rich don't rely on luck or moods. They rely on patterns. They create systems that make productivity automatic. Whether it's waking up early, saving a portion of every paycheck, or exercising daily, discipline builds the muscle of success. Every habit you form becomes a silent servant to your future. And when you master those habits, they start working for you even when your energy runs low. Now, I want you to think about your own life, the goals you've set, the dreams you've written down. What would happen if you treated your discipline like a sacred contract? What if you said, no matter how I feel, I do what I said I'd do? That kind of commitment changes everything. Because discipline doesn't just build wealth, it builds character. And when character grows, everything else follows: confidence, trust, and results. You see, the rich aren't necessarily smarter, they're simply consistent. They understand that success doesn't demand perfection, it demands persistence. They measure progress, not emotion. They don't ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, did I do what I promised myself? That's how winners think. Every small action counts, because every disciplined day compounds into something extraordinary. So here's the secret. Reward consistency, not comfort. Celebrate the days you showed up, even when you didn't want to. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize that your discipline has turned into destiny. The bridge you built, brick by brick, has carried you to a place few ever reach. Not just success, but greatness. And that's the reward of discipline. It gives you freedom, strength, and the life you once only dreamed of. Failure, that's a word most people run from. But let me tell you, the people who run from failure are also running from success. You see, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the path that leads to it. The difference between those who make it big and those who don't is simple. Successful people fail more times than most ever try. They treat every mistake, every setback, every disappointment as tuition paid toward a greater education. They don't wear failure as a label, they use it as a lesson. I remember when I first started in business, I was young, eager, and broke. I made mistake after mistake. I invested in the wrong things, trusted the wrong people, and underestimated the power of preparation. But each failure carried a message, a quiet whisper saying, pay attention, there's something to learn here. And once I stopped seeing failure as a punishment and started treating it as a seminar, my entire life changed. You can't learn how to win without first learning how to lose. Losing teaches you where the holes in your strategy are. Losing humbles you, sharpens you, and prepares you for the weight of success. The poor spirit says, I failed, I'm a failure. The rich spirit says, I failed, I learned something valuable. That small difference in language makes all the difference in life, because the first mindset ends the story, while the second begins a new chapter. Every time you fall, you're given a choice to stay down and accept the label, or to stand up and extract the lesson. Those who keep standing keep growing, and those who keep growing eventually win. If you want to turn failure into your ally, start keeping a failure journal. Write down every mistake, not with shame, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what can I adjust next time? The greatest minds in history, from inventors to investors, weren't afraid of failing 100 times. They understood that each failed attempt wasn't the end of the journey, but the refinement of it. Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He simply found 10,000 ways that didn't work, and each one brought him closer to the light. Here's what most people don't realize. Temporary defeat builds permanent wisdom. Every setback carries a seed of equivalent or greater benefit, if you're willing to look for it. Sometimes failure redirects you from what's good to what's great. Sometimes it forces you to grow the muscles you'll need for the next level. So don't curse your setbacks. Study them. Don't bury your failures. Dissect them. They contain gold if you're willing to dig deep enough. You must learn to detach your identity from your outcomes. A failed plan doesn't mean you're a failure. It simply means you're learning faster than most. Every person who's built wealth, success, or legacy will tell you they failed, and failed often, but they refused to stay down. They treated failure as feedback, not finality. And that's the real secret. You don't lose when you fail. You lose when you quit learning. So keep learning, keep trying, keep adjusting, because every failure is shaping you for a future. Only persistence can reveal. It's a funny thing about success. Most people think it comes in giant leaps with fireworks and applause. But the truth is, success is quiet. It sneaks up on you after years of doing small things that don't seem to matter at the time. The poor mindset wants a big win today. The rich mindset builds little wins every day. Persistence isn't about doing something massive once. It's about doing something meaningful consistently. The secret to wealth, health, and happiness isn't intensity, it's consistency. When I first started studying success, I realized something very simple. The smallest disciplines, when done every day, compound into results that can't be ignored. Miss a few days, and nothing seems to happen. Keep going for a few years, and everything changes. That's the law of compounding. And it's not just about money. It's about effort, discipline, and growth. The difference between the person who reads 10 pages a day and the one who reads none doesn't show up in a week. It shows up in a decade. But when it shows up big. I used to tell people, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But most folks think that's just a saying. It's not. It's a principle. The little things you do daily or neglect daily determine your destiny. Miss an apple a day and nothing happens. Miss it for a year and your health starts to shift. Miss it for a decade and your life tells the story. Success and failure are both silent processes. They're invisible in the moment, but undeniable over time. The rich understand this. They don't chase overnight results. They know that if you save a little, read a little, learn a little, and improve a little each day, time becomes your greatest ally. The poor, on the other hand, underestimate the power of small progress. They quit because they don't see results in a week. But those who persist understand that greatness isn't built in a day, it's built daily. If you want to see how this principle works, start tracking one small effort toward a major goal. Maybe it's saving $5 a day, or writing one page of your book, or studying 1 hour of a new skill. It might not feel like much at first, but if you do it long enough, it will separate you from 95% of the world. Because most people don't fail because they can't, they fail because they won't keep showing up. The real magic happens when you stay committed long enough for momentum to take over. At first, progress feels slow, painfully slow, but compounding rewards patience. The first year, it's invisible. The second year, it's noticeable. The fifth year, it's unstoppable. What starts as small habits eventually become the foundation of a powerful, productive life. So here's the truth. Never underestimate what a decade of small progress can build. You may not see the results today, but the seeds you're planting are already working beneath the surface. Success belongs to those who plant daily and trust time to multiply their harvest. Remember, you don't need to do it all at once, just a little, every day, with faith, focus, and follow-through. That's how small efforts become extraordinary lives. Everything you want in life begins in the mind long before it ever shows up in your hands. Money doesn't start in the bank, it starts in the brain. You can't attract wealth with a mind that's constantly worried about survival. The truth is, the rich and the poor live in the same world, but they see two entirely different realities. One sees limitation, the other sees opportunity. One asks, "Can I afford it?" and stops there. The other asks, "How can I afford it?" and begins thinking, planning, and growing. The mind must arrive before the money does. I remember when I was broke, really broke. Not tight on cash broke, but the kind where you're counting coins for dinner. But even then I discovered something powerful. The size of your wallet is always a reflection of the size of your thinking. I was poor in my pockets because I was poor in my perspective. My problem wasn't money, it was mindset. The moment I started studying wealthy people, not just what they earned, but how they thought, my life began to change. I learned that rich people think in terms of value, vision, and growth, while poor people think in terms of cost, comfort, and survival. You see, wealth is not an event, it's a mindset that matures over time. If you give $1 million to someone with a poor mindset, they'll lose it. But if you take away everything from someone with a wealthy mindset, they'll rebuild it. Why? Because their mind has already arrived at a higher level of awareness. Money only amplifies who you already are. If you're wise, it multiplies your impact. If you're careless, it multiplies your mistakes. That's why the first step in creating wealth is to train the mind before you chase the money. I began to ask myself a new question every morning. How can I create value today? It changed everything. Instead of looking for shortcuts, I started looking for service. Instead of wishing for opportunities, I started preparing for them. And slowly, the outer world began to reflect my inner growth. That's the real law of attraction. Not sitting and hoping, but thinking, believing, and acting from a higher state of awareness until what you believe becomes what you live. You must feed your mind with thoughts of abundance. Read about people who built great things from small beginnings. Study their patterns, how they think, how they make decisions, how they respond to adversity. You'll notice something. They don't see problems as punishment. They see them as puzzles to solve. That's the mindset that creates millionaires. So make it a habit to visualize your goals daily. Picture your ideal life with such clarity that your mind begins to accept it as possible, even inevitable. And once the belief settles, behavior follows. You'll start speaking differently, acting differently, attracting differently, because the mind always leads and the money always follows. Remember this truth: you can't achieve a millionaire's result with a minimum wage mindset. Before your bank account grows, your thinking must grow. Before you can hold abundance in your hands, you must first hold it in your head. Wealth doesn't begin with money, it begins with mentality. Change your thoughts, and your world will follow. Persistence is not about pushing harder, it's about being pulled by something deeper. You can't wake up early, stay late, face rejection, or fight fatigue unless there's a purpose behind it all. Discipline can keep you going for a while, but purpose is what keeps you going when nothing else works. Most people quit not because the goal was too hard, but because their why wasn't strong enough. They start a journey out of excitement, but they only finish it when they have meaning. Purpose is the fuel that keeps the fire alive long after motivation burns out. There was a time when I worked tirelessly, chasing money, success, and recognition. And yet, something always felt hollow. Every achievement felt temporary. Every victory short-lived. It wasn't until I stopped to ask myself why that things began to change. Why do I want success? Why do I want wealth? Why do I want to build something great? When the answer became clear, to provide, to grow, to serve, to make an impact, everything shifted. Suddenly, the long nights didn't feel like suffering, they felt like investment. The setbacks didn't feel like punishment, they felt like preparation. You see, people who quit are usually people without a purpose. They can tell you what they're doing, but not why. But the wealthy, the builders, the dreamers, they have a purpose that burns so bright, it pulls them forward even in darkness. That's why millionaires keep going when others stop. They're not chasing profit, they're chasing purpose. Profit is just a reward, purpose is the reason. And when your reason is big enough, the results take care of themselves. I often tell people, if your goal doesn't make you emotional, it won't make you exceptional. There's a power in having something that stirs your soul, something that matters more than money, more than applause, more than convenience. Maybe your purpose is to build security for your family. Maybe it's to create something meaningful for the next generation. Maybe it's to prove to yourself that you can rise above your circumstances. Whatever it is, define it clearly. Write it down. Read it often. Remind yourself of it when the journey feels long. Because when you forget the why, the how always feels too heavy. When motivation fades, and it will, revisit your reason. When doubt whispers that you're wasting your time, look at your purpose and let it remind you why you started. The secret of persistence isn't in strength, it's in clarity. When you know why you're doing something, you'll find the energy to keep doing it. Meaning fuels miles. I've met people who gave up just before their breakthrough, not because they were incapable, but because they lost sight of the vision that once moved them. Don't make that mistake. Tie your persistence to something eternal, not money, not fame, but purpose. Because when you're pulled by vision, you don't have to force effort, it flows naturally. Remember, the journey of success will test you, stretch you, and sometimes break you. But if your purpose is strong enough, you'll never stay down for long. You'll rise again, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Persistence isn't about pushing harder, it's about being pulled by something bigger. Let meaning fuel your miles, and you'll find that purpose never runs out of energy. Consistency will take you where talent only dreams of going. You see, the world doesn't pay for what you could do, it pays for what you actually do. We all know people who are gifted, talented, or naturally brilliant, yet somehow they never reach the top. And then we see others less talented, less gifted, but relentless, and they win. Why? Because consistency beats talent when talent doesn't show up. The persistent beginner will always outgrow the lazy genius. I've met many people who said, if only I had more talent, I'd be successful. But the truth is, you don't need more talent, you need more consistency. Talent may open the door, but only discipline keeps you in the room. It's easy to get excited about new goals. It's the daily grind that tests your commitment. Success is rarely about brilliance. It's about showing up every single day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because consistency, not intensity, builds greatness. I remember in my early years, I met a man who wasn't the smartest in the room, but he was the most consistent. Every day, he read, he worked, he learned, he applied, rain or shine, tired or energized, he never missed his routine. 10 years later, he was a millionaire, not because of luck or brilliance, but because of habits. He didn't wait for the perfect mood, the perfect time, or the perfect opportunity. He just showed up, and over time, the small, ordinary efforts compounded into extraordinary results. That's the secret most people miss. Consistency is the compound interest of effort. Every small step you take adds up. You may not see progress day by day, but over time, the results become undeniable. You can't go to the gym once and expect transformation. You can't read one book and expect wisdom. You can't invest one time and expect wealth. The great ones become great because they stay in the game longer than others are willing to. Now, consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means persistence with purpose. It means you follow your schedule, not your emotions. You stay faithful to the plan, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. I always say, motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going, and consistency makes you unstoppable. The wealthy don't work when they feel inspired. They work until the job is done. They understand that emotions are temporary, but habits are permanent. So, set a schedule and keep it sacred. Build a routine that supports your goals. Don't let your feelings decide your future, because if you only work when you're in the mood, you'll never get very far. The greatest reward of consistency is not just success, it's confidence. When you keep promises to yourself every day, you start to believe in your ability to follow through. That belief becomes unstoppable momentum. The truth is, consistency doesn't just build wealth, it builds character. It turns ordinary people into extraordinary performers. You may start small, you may feel unnoticed, but stay the course. Keep showing up, keep improving, keep planting, because one day the harvest will come and those who quit will wonder how you got there. Remember, it's not about doing something huge once, it's about doing something meaningful daily. Consistency turns effort into excellence and persistence into prosperity. Talent may give you potential, but consistency gives you power. Keep showing up even when no one's watching, because ordinary efforts done daily create extraordinary lives. Every dreamer faces walls, but the difference between the rich and the poor, between the winners and the quitters, is how they see those walls. Most people hit an obstacle and think it's the end. The persistent see it as the beginning, because behind every problem lies a hidden opportunity, a lesson, a breakthrough, a new direction. The rich don't avoid problems, they monetize them. Persistence turns pain into progress. I learned early that life doesn't hand you success wrapped in a bow. It hands you a challenge disguised as trouble and asks, "What will you do with this?" And most people complain, retreat, or give up. But those who persist, who stay calm long enough to study the problem, discover the seed of opportunity buried inside it. You see, problems are not interruptions, they're instructions. They reveal what you need to learn, what you need to fix, or where you need to grow. I remember when my business once hit a terrible slump. Sales were down, motivation was low, and it felt like everything I'd built was slipping away. My first instinct was frustration. I wanted to blame the market, the economy, or timing. But I stopped myself and asked, what's really happening here? What can I learn from this? And that one question turned everything around. I studied what caused the problem. I realized my team was working hard but not smart. We were pushing the same old strategy in a market that had changed. That problem forced me to innovate, to refine my approach, rework my message, and improve my leadership. Within a year, the setback became a setup for a major breakthrough. That's how the persistent win. They don't run from resistance, they read it. They don't collapse under pressure, they convert it. Every successful person you admire has a collection of scars, failures, and breakdowns that became their biggest breakthroughs. They understand that adversity is not the enemy of success, it's the birthplace of it. It sharpens character, deepens perspective, and strengthens resolve. Without obstacles, you'd never discover your true capacity. When you meet resistance, don't retreat. Refine your approach. Study the situation. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Where is the opportunity hidden inside this? Because there always is one. Every financial downturn creates a new industry. Every technological disruption births new innovators. Every rejection pushes you toward redirection. But you have to train your mind to look for value, not victimhood. Most people let pain close their eyes. The rich let pain open them wider. They don't waste energy complaining. They channel it into creativity. When a door shuts, they build a window. When the market shifts, they shift faster. That's why persistence is not just about holding on, it's about moving forward smarter. The next time you face a setback, pause before you panic. Take a step back and say, somewhere in this challenge is my next advantage. Maybe it's a lesson that will save you millions later. Maybe it's a new product, a new direction, or a new strength. Whatever it is, you'll only find it if you keep your eyes open and your spirit unbroken. So don't curse your obstacles, thank them. They're refining you for greater rewards. Remember, diamonds are born under pressure, and so is your next level. Adversity doesn't stop the persistent, it shapes them. The obstacle you face today might just be the opportunity that defines your future. Excellence isn't born in a day, it's built through deliberate repetition. Persistence is what transforms raw effort into refined mastery. The difference between the average and the exceptional isn't talent, it's consistency. The rich understand that success is not an event, it's a process of becoming. They don't just practice until they get it right, they practice until they can't get it wrong. Every stroke, every step, every sale, every skill, done again and again, becomes sharper, smoother, stronger. Persistence turns effort into excellence. When I was a young man, I thought talent was everything. I admired people who could speak better, sell better, lead better, and I told myself they were just born that way. But I was wrong. Over time, I discovered something powerful. The top 1% of performers in any field aren't necessarily the most gifted, they're simply the most committed to getting better. They understand that excellence is built through boring repetition. It's not about doing extraordinary things once. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, over and over. I remember when I first began my career in sales. I was nervous, awkward, and full of mistakes. My presentations were clumsy, my words stumbled, and half the time I left people confused. But I refused to quit. Every night I reviewed what went wrong, every no, every hesitation, every question I couldn't answer. I refined, rehearsed, and returned. Over time, those rough edges smoothed out, my words became clear, my confidence grew, and eventually, people started saying yes. Not because I suddenly became talented, but because persistence had transformed practice into precision. That's the hidden power of persistence. It compounds improvement. Most people quit before they've built enough momentum for mastery. They plant the seed but don't water it long enough to see it bloom. But those who persist, who keep showing up when results are slow, they build something rare, unconscious competence. It's when excellence becomes your nature. You no longer try to perform well. You simply do because you've practiced enough that excellence has become who you are. You can apply this to any area of life: wealth, health, communication, leadership. Pick one skill, just one, and improve it steadily for a month. Maybe it's negotiation, maybe it's writing, maybe it's understanding investments. Review it, refine it, and repeat it. And after that month, choose another. Over time, you'll wake up one day and realize you've become irreplaceable in your field. Not because you worked harder for a week, but because you worked consistently for years. Excellence is not about speed. It's about staying power. The wealthy don't chase quick wins. They build deep wells of expertise. They understand that mastery is magnetic. The marketplace always pays more for mastery. That's why they never stop refining. They know that the moment you stop improving, you start declining. So don't aim for perfection in a day. Aim for progress every day. Work your craft until it becomes second nature. Don't let fatigue make you forget that persistence is the sculptor of greatness. Because eventually, through repetition and refinement, your work stops being labor, it becomes art. And that's when the world starts to notice. Excellence is not luck. It's the quiet reward of persistence. Keep practicing until good becomes great and great becomes effortless. You see, most people want the trophy without the training. They crave the applause, but not the preparation. They want the result, not the repetition. But the truth is, success is never an event, it's a process. The rich don't chase the prize, they master the process. They fall in love with the discipline of creation, the grind of consistency, the rhythm of progress. Because they know, if you take care of the process, the prize takes care of itself. When I started learning the art of sales and personal development, I was obsessed with the reward. I wanted the big commission, the recognition, the results. But every time the outcome didn't come fast enough, I got discouraged. It wasn't until I learned to focus on the process, the daily actions, the small improvements, the steady habits, that everything began to change. I realized that when you focus on the prize, you get frustrated by delay. But when you focus on the process, you get fulfilled by progress. Most people fail not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they lose patience with the process. They quit halfway because the reward isn't instant. They treat effort like a lottery ticket. Maybe this will be the one. But the wealthy treat effort like an investment. This will eventually pay off. It's a completely different mindset. They understand that the prize is just a reflection of the habits built along the way. I remember one young entrepreneur who came to me for advice. He said, "I've been at this business for 6 months and I'm not seeing results." I asked him, "Have you tracked your efforts? The calls, the meetings, the hours. He looked confused. See, he was only measuring results, not discipline. The rich understand that what gets measured gets improved. They track effort, consistency, and learning, not just a scoreboard. Because the scoreboard only changes when the practice does. If you want to build wealth, learn to find joy in the routine. The poor do what feels good. The rich do what creates good. If your only fuel is the result, you'll run out of energy when it's delayed. But if your fuel is the process itself, the learning, the discipline, the growth, then success becomes inevitable. You'll wake up every day with purpose because the reward is not just in the destination, but in the development. Track your actions. Reward yourself for staying consistent. Celebrate the effort, even the unseen ones. Because those unseen hours, those quiet mornings of work, those late nights of learning, that's where real success is born. The world may not clap for you now, but one day it will. When you fall in love with the process, persistence becomes natural. You no longer have to chase motivation. Discipline becomes your rhythm. And here's the beauty of it. When you love what you do, the results will start chasing you. Money, recognition, freedom, they all follow the one who refuses to quit on the process. So, don't chase the prize. Become the person worthy of it. Focus on the process. Refine it. Repeat it. Rejoice in it. Because when you do, the prize isn't just inevitable, it's earned. There's something extraordinary about a person who truly believes in their vision. Not just hopes, not just wishes, but believes. You can feel it when they speak. There's a calm certainty, a quiet conviction that says, it's already done, I'm just walking it out. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that turns ordinary men into millionaires, dreamers into builders, and vision into victory. See, persistence without belief is pure exhaustion. You can work 12 hours a day, grind every weekend, and hustle every night, but if deep down you doubt it's possible, you're draining energy faster than you're building progress. It's like driving a car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. Belief releases the brake. Faith gives your persistence purpose. It tells your mind and spirit, this is worth it. This is happening. And once that conviction is set, no setback can shake it. When I first started my journey, I wasn't successful. I was broke, discouraged, and frustrated. But one day, I caught a glimpse of what could be. The life I wanted to live, the person I wanted to become, and I wrote it down. Every morning, I'd read it until it became a part of me. My reality didn't match my vision yet, but my belief began to, and that's when everything changed. Because your mind must arrive before your body does. You have to see yourself successful before you ever hold success in your hand. Faith isn't just spiritual. It's strategic. It guides your focus, filters your fears, and fuels your resilience. When you truly believe in your vision, you stop reacting to circumstances and start responding to purpose. When things go wrong, and they will, you don't crumble, because your faith is stronger than your frustration. Every successful person you admire has walked through seasons of silence, moments when nothing seemed to work. But they didn't lose sight of their vision. They held on, not because it was easy, but because they knew where they were headed. You must learn to guard your vision like a treasure. Don't hand it to everyone for approval. Most people can't see what you see because it wasn't given to them. Read your vision daily. Speak it until it sounds natural. Visualize it until it feels real. Let it anchor you when emotions waver. And when doubt knocks on the door, because it always does, don't entertain it with fear. Return to your reason. Remind yourself why you started. Remind yourself what's at stake if you quit. Faith turns persistence into power. It transforms effort into endurance. It gives you the strength to keep sowing when the soil looks dry, to keep building when no one is clapping, to keep believing when the evidence isn't there yet. And then one day, the world will see what you've always seen, the vision made real, the dream made tangible, the reward of unshakable belief. So, hold the vision, nurture it, protect it, believe in it more than your fear, more than your fatigue, more than your frustration. Because once you do, once your faith becomes unshakable, the world will have no choice but to catch up to your conviction. Consistency is one of the quietest forces of success. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, but it builds like a tide that never stops coming. Every day you show up, every promise you keep to yourself, every small discipline you repeat, it's all adding up, quietly, invisibly, until one day it becomes momentum. And once momentum starts working for you instead of against you, that's when life changes. See, persistence gets you moving, but consistency keeps you growing. And when you learn how to turn consistency into leverage, that's when wealth stops being effort and starts becoming system. The key difference between the wealthy and the weary is this: the wealthy systemize what works, while the weary just repeat what's urgent. The rich take the same energy it takes to survive and turn it into structure that sustains. They don't rely on motivation, they rely on machines, habits, and systems that carry the weight even when they're not there. The poor say, "I'll do it when I feel like it." The rich say, "I've already built a system to make it happen." That's the difference between pressure and freedom. I remember when I first began to find success, I was still doing everything manually. I was chasing every dollar, managing every detail, working harder instead of smarter. But over time, I realized that real freedom comes when your habits begin to produce results without your constant effort, when your savings happen automatically, when your investments grow while you sleep, when your business runs on systems instead of stress. That's the power of leverage, your effort multiplied by structure. Think about it. Every act of discipline today becomes tomorrow's automation. Every repeated behavior becomes a process, and every process becomes a system. The key is to identify what's working and lock it in. Automate your savings so your discipline is never interrupted by emotion. Systemize your income streams so they don't depend on your mood or motivation. Create routines that run your life efficiently so your mental energy can focus on creation, not maintenance. Consistency isn't just about doing, it's about designing. The most successful people don't work harder forever. They work hard long enough to build something that works for them. They understand that discipline is like a seed. You plant it daily until it becomes a tree that bears fruit year after year, even while you rest. If you're doing the same hard thing over and over again without building leverage, you're not persisting, you're just repeating. But when you start turning your consistency into systems, you're building momentum that outlives your effort. So ask yourself, where can I build structure? Where can I let automation protect my discipline? Where can I turn my daily habits into engines of freedom? Because that's how you escape the trap of effort-based living and step into the rhythm of growth-based wealth. The ultimate goal of persistence isn't just to keep going, it's to build something that keeps going without you. That's when you've truly leveraged consistency, when your habits have become a machine that produces not exhaustion, but freedom. Persistence is not something you turn on when times get tough, it's something you live by, a way of being. The people who rise to extraordinary success don't suddenly become persistent when it's convenient. They carry persistence in their bones. It's not an act for them, it's an identity. They don't ask, should I keep going? They simply do. Because when persistence becomes part of your character, quitting stops being an option. I've seen it time and again. People get fired up, inspired, ready to conquer the world after a seminar or a good book. They push for a week, maybe a month, and then they stop. Not because they can't, but because they think persistence is supposed to feel exciting all the time. But persistence isn't about excitement, it's about endurance. It's about showing up on the ordinary days with the same spirit you had on the first day. The rich understand this deeply. Consistency creates the compound effect that mediocrity never sees. The poor stop when it's uncomfortable, the rich keep going until it becomes natural. In every area of life, fitness, finance, focus, persistence is the common denominator of mastery. You can't be wealthy if you're inconsistent. You can't be healthy if you're occasional. You can't be focused if you only act when inspired. You've got to make persistence your default mode. When you say you'll save, you save. When you say you'll study, you study. When you say you'll show up, you show up. And over time, that reliability to yourself becomes strength. You start trusting your own word again, and that's when personal power grows. I remember when I was young, I would often get distracted by new ideas, new opportunities, new methods. I'd start strong, then shift to something else. But I eventually realized success doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things long enough. The farmer doesn't dig up his seeds every week to check if they're growing. He plants, waters, and waits. That's persistence. And that's how wealth, real, lasting wealth, is built. You don't get rich from one brilliant idea. You get rich from sticking with one plan, one process, one principle, long enough for it to bear fruit. The challenge is to live by standards, not moods, because moods are unreliable, but standards are unshakable. Moods tell you to rest when you should rise. Standards remind you of who you said you'd be. Start tracking your consistency, not to judge yourself, but to witness your own evolution. Each streak you maintain, each habit you keep, each day you don't quit, that's your character being built in real time. So make persistence your lifestyle. Let it show in the way you speak, the way you work, the way you handle adversity. Don't let it be something you do, let it be who you are. When I don't quit becomes part of your identity. Life starts bending in your favor. Because the truth is simple. The world always yields to the man or woman who refuses to yield first. As we come to a close, remember, wealth, success, greatness, they're not built in sudden bursts of luck. They're forged in the quiet, daily moments when you choose persistence over pause, purpose over comfort, and growth over excuses. The difference between those who dream and those who achieve is not talent, it's tenacity. It's the commitment to stay the course long after the mood in which the goal was set has faded. So from this moment on, decide that you'll be the person who doesn't stop when it's hard, who doesn't quit when it's slow, who doesn't surrender when it's uncertain. Decide that your word means something to you.